Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lesson 9 of Positive Youth. At the last lesson, I had mentioned to you that the current shelter in place posed a tremendous stress on our mental health. But the good thing is that look at the data from Kaiser Family Foundation. They did the research they did a survey between March 10th to 15th. Turned out that about 32% of the people reported that the coronavirus posed a minor or major negative impact on their mental health. That number actually is very encouraging to psychologists like me because in general, without the virus situation, about 25% of our general population have mental health issues. So even without it, I would expect about 25% of people feel like the environment is posing lots of stress to their mental health. But under such a dramatic change and stressful situation in shelter in place, I'm really impressed that 67% of people felt that the coronavirus did not have any significant impact on their mental health at all. Why is that? Because we, as human, we have resilience that can protect us from such stress. So that's a very important resource for ourselves to help us to develop to our full potentials, because down the road, you are going to face challenges and crises and unexpected changes in your life. Whether you own or strengthen your resilience is one of the strongest predictors for your future success. That's why when we talk about learning, please know that learning is not just acquiring book knowledge, but to acquire the characters, strengthen the characters that will help us to live our life to the fullest. The reason I mention that is because compare the data in China. China did a data in February 2020 and compare that with the data in 2019. They found out that even though positive emotions dropped during the coronavirus in China back in February, most of the other dimensions increased. For example, engagement, because people have a longer period of time, they can spend time on things that interest them and bring them a sense of accomplishment. And also, the virus made them to think more about the purpose and meaning in life. So a virus does not only bring fear and worries, but also motivate people to grow in such a crisis. But either way, stress made it difficult to remain focused on things that we need to do. So when we are under stress, we're more easily distracted, harder for us to focus on our tasks at hand. So today we continue to discuss engagement. The last session is, can school learning be as engaging as video games? We talked about flow last session. We talked about when our challenges and the skills that are a good match. When we have clear goals and prompt feedback, we enter the optimal experience of flow, where we lose track of the time and we in such a deep focus that we even lose a sense of self. We just focus on what we're going to do and enjoy the experience. And many students mentioned that, video games fit that category exactly. You are right. But could school learning also be engaging and enjoyable as a flow? We talk about the meaningful and the not meaningful flow. We certainly want to spend our time more productively and wisely during the shelter-in-place time. The answer is yes. School learning can be as engaging as leisure activities that we're interested in. Now, before we enter that, I want to talk a little bit about the factors behind attention. So, genetics play a part in our attention skills. Some children are born to be more focused. They are much easier to get involved into activity, much easier to enter the Zoom, like we talked about in the Q&A. Yes, that's about 50% of our innate characters determined. So that we cannot control. What we can control are other things, the other 50%. For example, sleep and diet. So if you rest well, you definitely can concentrate much better. If you have healthy diet instead of sugary or junk food, then you're easier. It's easier for you to maintain focus as well. There are also environmental reasons. One student asked, how I get distracted easily when I'm in front of a screen. I should be focused on my homework, but I can't resist the temptation to watch YouTube videos. I would say that's part of the environment. If you're doing your homework and like writing an essay, if you do not need the internet, shut the internet for the half an hour or 45 minutes when you need to do your paper pencil homework. So that would be a good condition to build a distraction-free workspace. We also talk about clear out your desk of the other things so they can focus on just one subject, one task at a time. So those are the outside external factors. There are also internal factors such as interest. If you're interested in something, it's much easier for you to enter the flow zone because you like it. There are also other things such as the match between learning styles and learning tasks. Learning styles, I'll go into that in more detail next slide. So learning tasks are referring to reading, writing, or math. So the things that we need to get done. Motivation is also part of that. Motivation covers different things. For example, if you're interested in something, you are motivated to do well. There's no doubt about that. But if you're not interested, but you believe that you have the ability, you feel competent enough to take it on, and then you are motivated to get it done as well, especially when you know that's a required class for your graduation. Then you are motivated to do that. So you're not interested, but you feel competent to do it. There's also another condition. You're not interested, and it's a little bit more difficult. But if you have friends who are taking the same class, you're also motivated because you want to fit in with your friends. If your friends are A's and B's students, and then you want to be A's and B's, so you have social motivation. So motivation comes from different channels. Either way, once you're motivated, you are more likely to be very focused and want to do well on something. So I want to go talk a little bit about learning styles. This theory came from the 1970s, even though there are some disagreements. Over my last 20 years working in public school, I found it quite accurate. There are students who are very good with auditory processing skills. They can understand, they can memorize just by listening to the teacher's lectures. In upper grades and secondary education, even in college, that's considered a very good tool. Unfortunately, only about 30-some% people are auditory learners. So most of us, about 60% of us, we need some kind of visual support. For example, to look at a map can help us to memorize all the different locations. Or when we do history, we draw a timeline. So those kind of visual help will support our learning. There's also another kind of learners who loves to use their hands to make stuff, kinesthetic learners. Those children, you often see them very good at Legos, or they can take apart the computer and put it together. So once you can match your learning task together with your learning style, you're much more likely to enter the optimal experience of flow because you're good at it and you're using your strength to do something, make the task more enjoyable. Also, we have different abilities. The match between the ability and what we do is very critical to our deep learning or deep focus as well. Dr. Howard Gardner was a professor in Harvard University. He discovered from the patients of brain injury back in Harvard Hospital, the medical school hospital, that different parts of the injury in the brain cause different damages in ability. And from that, he developed into the theory of multiple intelligence. In 1983, he published a book, Theory of Mind, and explained that we used to think intelligence just two kinds, verbal ability, nonverbal ability. So he found out that no, on top of that, verbal versus mathematical, logical reasoning ability, we also have musical intelligence, such as the musicians, and you can see that they're using music as such a beautiful language to express themselves. There are also bodily kinesthetic intelligence. You look at those Olympic athletes, and their bodies just can move in such a way that's amazing. We also have visual spatial intelligence. There are children who are very good at drawing or designing, and they can see things in 3D so easily, and those are visual spatial intelligence.